I'll start just by introducing myself. So you know my name, and you can see my role here at Binder. But just a little bit of background on me. I'm what I would call a seasoned B2B marketeer, about 23 years working in organizations that range from large corporates, IBM and SAP, to startups and scale ups. And I've done both vendor side, a lot of vendor side actually, but I've also done partner side and channel side. So, I guess you can call me a passionate marketeer and an even more passionate B2B marketeer as well. So delighted to be here. I think it's a really, really exciting time to be in and around the content operations space. So Jana said, I'm going to try and speak for the next 22 minutes, something like that. And I'm going to talk about these 6 pillars of content experience and the role of digital asset management within those as well. Although, I won't get into the nuts and bolts of digital asset management as a technology. What I really want to focus on today is, the components and content experience and how you might like to think about some of the challenges associated with those things and how some organizations that we've worked in has addressed them. But before I get there, it would be remiss of me not to do an introduction to Binder. And I also, I think want to frame up just why content and digital asset management has become mission critical for organizations that are now looking to compete in what we call this modern digital economy, especially against the backdrop of some of this economic uncertainty that the world is experiencing right now. So our vision at Bynder is to help organization and brands thrive through the delivery of exceptional content experiences. And we do that by helping our customers to overcome the complexity and chaos of proliferating content with our market leading digital asset management platform. It would be remiss of me not to do a brief company overview. There's a lot on the page here, but I think just to simplify who we are and what DAM is, I think you just think of DAM as the authoritative source of truth for creative content. And it's designed to accelerate content production, to streamline collaboration and ensure brand consistency. But I think some of the things that we'll talk about here today in the modern digital economy and in the context of the modern digital economy, a critical part of the value of digital asset management today is not just in the creation and management of content, but now it's much more about powering customer and digital experiences. And in fact, we here at Bynder, we serve over 4 billion assets a month in support of our customers' exceptional content experiences. And we've evolved and revolutionized this DAM category. More recently, increased support for content operations with the acquisition of Gather Content. And I know that you folks are very, very familiar with Gather Content and Alice and Angus Edwardson, who I know join these communities on an ongoing basis. But the acquisition of Gather Content added capability to connect that great creative content that you manage out of the DAM with text-based content in order to improve time to market and speed of execution. So just a brief overview of Bynder and DAM. I want to talk about some of the tailwinds I think that are driving the need or the adoption or increased interest in enterprise DAM and content operations. And DAM's critical today because content is critical. I'm super privileged as a CMO in my role to speak to customers, buyers, analysts, other CMOs and C-level marketeers. And unequivocally, this topic of customer experience and digital experience comes up more and more as a strategic initiative. Executive marketeers want to provide their customers with consistent experiences across multiple touch point, which today is that typical omni-channel buyer's journey. And they recognize that content is a key competitive differentiator. It's more important as part of their marketing strategy than it ever has been before. They understand the challenge associated with this growing, trifecta of issues around volume, variety, and velocity of content. And I think more and more folks are waking up to the fact that content doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's got to be delivered to point of impact in order to have value. And so that means connectivity and integration to other parts of MarTech and e-commerce, software and technology stack. So this customer experience, this digital experience is now driving, I think, what I call this next wave of DAM adoption. And so DAM is no longer just a system of record for content, but it becomes more of an automated content creation and distribution platform that has a fundamental role in driving great digital experiences. And as a result, content operations is being lifted to be much more strategic within organizations than it ever has been before. So let me just get on to this concept of content experiences. What do we mean when we talk about content experiences? And I want to make it really, really clear, we're not talking about the software category. And there is a software category that exists around content experiences, but that's not what we're talking about here today. I'm talking about kind of this recognition or movement towards the role content now plays in driving cut through in increasingly crowded markets, often with lower barriers to entry and even fiercer competition. So at its simplest level, content experience means, in the context of our conversation today, how do you deliver the right content to the right people, to the right time, in the right format, in a way that drives impact? And we think that there's 6 specific characteristics that make up a content experience, each one of them important. I'll visit those, frame them a little bit with real life examples, as I promised, later in this deck. Okay, so current state of the digital economy and kind of a brand perspective. I think we can't talk about content experience without looking at broader trends in the market. A lot of noise around what customer expectations look like, what the customer experience should look like. And I think organizations have responded to those demands by investing and implementing technology to try and meet those expectations or drive differentiation from competition. And there's been a lot of great work done in this area. So the emergence of digital experience platforms alongside solutions like CDPs for single view of customer data, product information management, content management systems, and analytics. And I think there's also been investment in people dedicated to leading initiatives around these things. So chief digital officers, customer experience executives. And yet, if the stats on this screen are to be believed, less than a third of marketers believe that customer expectations are at the heart of their digital strategies. And I think that then leads us to talk about the reason why that's the case. I think one of those reasons is incomplete, disjointed, or disconnected system. And you can see the stats here. 75% of respondents from this survey we did earlier this year felt that connecting technology is a critically important part for digital success. And this connected tissue, this glue that unifies these systems, we believe is content, and the system of record for that content is digital asset management. And it's important, right? Because I think if we needed any more validation of the relevance of experience in this experience economy, if the stats on the screen are to be believed, then things not actually related to the actual product that is being purchased becomes highly influential in the decision to buy whatever it is that is being purchased, and who we as consumers choose to buy from as well, which I think kind of leads us to the question of, have we got our priorities right when it comes to how we deliver great experiences. Because if you think about the things, the technology that have hogged the limelight up until now, they've been the systems that sit below this waterline on the slide that I'm showing here. So CDPs have emerged as this standard for single view of customer data, PIM for product information management, CMS for web content, marketing automation platforms for email marketing. I think the marketing industry is coming to understand that in addition to these things, creative content, and more specifically DAM, plays that critical role in this modern conception of digital experiences and the content experiences they drive. And it is critical because if you think about the digital economy and the modern buyer's journey, that point of engagement, that point of inflection, it's content. It's content that drives clicks and conversion. It's those clicks and conversions that turn the wheels of commerce and drive revenue. And whilst I'm not overlooking the importance of those other technologies, I think without a content engine to drive them, they're incomplete. So I couldn't do this presentation without at least touching on some of these economic headwinds and the challenges that they're bringing in terms of content operations. I think most organizations struggle to succeed in delivering exceptional content experiences at scale with their current setup of often siloed and disconnected systems, but they still have to drive growth strategies and initiatives that drive market share, and they spend vast sums of money on content creation in order to support that. I think in the current economic climate, we know that companies have got more of a focus on operational efficiencies, and content operations and broader marketing teams are going to be challenged on resources, both money and people, which then connects back, I think, to the role of technology in overcoming these resource constraints so that organizations can still manage the demand for content, that volume, velocity, and variety of content that I called out earlier. So, again, I think that, as we talk to our customers and partners, here's some of the things that we've got back from them in terms of some of the challenges that are being overcome by digital asset management, which is first and foremost headcount reduction. Right? How do you leverage automation, minimize manual creative work, while still meeting the demands of the organization? Technology consolidation. How do you bring all your content into one single version of the truth, one source, eliminate redundancies, these siloed storage locations, and the challenges that comes with finding up-to-date on-brand content in relation to that. Content reuse and repurposing as well. How do you find successful content and repurpose it for new campaigns without having to start from scratch? Content reuse is something that we are hearing more and more and more as something critical in terms of driving efficiency and productivity from content operations team in the current economic climate. And then, of course, organizations are taking control of their content in-house, reducing the need to use external agencies. And then finally here, just speed of execution. How do you automate the delivery of content from one system of record to all content serving platforms in order to achieve speed of market and capture wallet share? So I think those are some of the things that are being considered as part of the economic environment in which we're in, I think are useful to call out. I promised to talk about the 6 pillars or categories of content experience. Here they are up on the screen, and then I'll go into some examples of how they're used in real life. So brand consistency, that's all about safeguarding brand identity, promoting it consistently across channels to deliver these on-brand omni-channel experiences. Relevancy, all about the ability to deliver relevant and contextualized content to your audiences, and not to be confused, by the way, with personalization and one-to-one personalization. Often I think we get bogged down in this world of account-based marketing and one-to-one account-based marketing around the need to personalize content on a one-to-one basis. I think you're going to see in some of the examples that I share, You don't always need to create one-to-one content to become more relevant and contextualized to the audiences that you wish to serve. Speed and agility, and here we talk about the process actually for reviewing and approving content in order to get it to market in a more efficient and timely manner. Distribution, which I've already touched on, because content doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's at the heart of an ecosystem of MarTech and e-commerce technologies. Brands have got to quickly and efficiently deliver that content to end user touch points in order to drive engagement and conversion and fuel commerce. And then scale. How do you manage this growing volume and variety of content required whilst maintaining cost and creative capability? And then performance last, but by no means least. So how do you ensure that the content meets business goals as well as user needs? And I think this pillar is kind of an outcome of all the other 5 pillars. So for example, if a brand has consistency of across all channels, they're delivering ROI as well as offering a seamless experience to prospective customers. So they're the 6 things that we talk about when we talk about content experience. So let me give you some examples of those. So this example is Pernod Ricard. They probably need very little introduction. The world's 2nd largest wine and spirits seller, and more than 18,000 employees worldwide. I think one of the biggest benefits that Bynder has brought to them, or digital asset management has brought to them in terms of content operations, is this single source of truth that stakeholders can access across the entirety of the business and its sub-brands. So Pernod Ricard release assets into the platform 3 times a year. Their time releases to ensure that only curated, approved assets are made available to more than 11,000 users based on strict permissions and access rights. So only the latest content can be used and syndicated wherever it is Pernod Ricard products are sold. And people inside and outside the organization have access to those up-to-date approved assets. But they also use Bynder DAM as a critical stage in their content creation process as well. So they enhance the marketing team's creative potential without needing to assign extra resources. What they are doing is they are templating images, as you can see up on the screen here, that can be then delivered down to local markets and adapted for local use. So the example that you're seeing up on the page here, instead of designers and agency creatives producing the content, adaptive content templates are created, which then are delivered down into markets. And this enabled them in this example to swap out city names in Absolut Vodka video ads in order to localize to individual cities. And the outcome of that is that ad recall increased by 35%. I think just a great simple example of how increased relevancy drove increased ad recall. Align Technology, global medical device technology, they reimagine and reinvent the way orthodontic and restorative treatment is delivered to millions of people around the world. Prior to their adoption of a DAM, their marketing materials were dispersed on shared hard drives on people's desktops. As a result, a lot of time was spent looking for lost files. No real version control for shared content. Wasn't uncommon for different marketing teams to be sharing different versions of the same content. Teams weren't always aware of new content releases. They integrated with their Salesforce Marketing Cloud in order to make sure that the latest email content, which was the primary method of communication, was made available and distributed to their resellers with speed and agility. So started to connect to other parts of the ecosystem, in this case predominantly email, in order to get consistent content out to market quickly and effectively. On brand consistency and scale, just excuse me one minute here.
So Warren, I'll just say that we have about 6-7 minutes left. Just want to make sure we don't run out of time.
No problem, Janice. Yeah, a couple more slides and then I'll pause for question and comment. Clio Tech Uniform, legal case management software, seeing increased demand for content from all areas of the business, from recruitment, marketing, sales, partnerships, beyond the bandwidth, the resources they had in the creative team. It was a creative team of 6. They made the decision, rather than to recruit additional headcount, to look at ways to scale content production in other ways. And again, they've used Bynder Studio to deliver templated versions of content. And they talk about their design team effectively going from 6 to 600 because they've got the ability now for everyone in their organization to create and distribute content out to market based on approved templates. So they can create, manage, and distribute now this high volume of content to support their growth objectives without having to scale their content operations team. And then Red Roof, hotel hospitality chain. I think the key thing here is, in terms of distribution, they have a set of 50,000 image requests a day from their DAM that needs to be displayed consistently across 167 different websites. So that single source of truth for on-brand content across physical and digital properties, absolutely critical for brand consistency. Again, that's where they use DAM in order to support that within their business. And then just finally, Edrington here, Story, traditional brand, again, high-end spirits brand. During the pandemic, they really wanted to accelerate their focus on e-commerce and place greater emphasis on direct to consumer. They connected their digital asset management platform to their product information management entity and saw e-commerce sales grow by 10% off of the back of getting consistent product information management data connected to the right creative content in front of users directly. Yeah, I'll make this my final slide just so I can open up for questions. I'll shut down the slides and then I can see everyone here. But the way that we look at the market and we see users adopt technology in relation to content operations is demonstrated in this matrix here. So the top right-hand corner, you tend to see larger organizations that are looking at big transformative initiatives like digital transformation. I talked about the components of a digital transformation stack a little bit earlier, but often what you see down in the bottom left-hand corner is a lot of organizations adopting content operation technologies like DAM because they want the operational benefits of being able to find content faster, quicker, being on brand and compliant, giving the right people access to the right content at the right time. So I think this is just a good slide to frame a bunch of the use cases that we see in relation to managing content and content experiences. So really appreciate your time. I'll pause there and absolutely happy to take any questions. I did a little bit more than the 22 minutes I promised.
It's all good. We still have 3 minutes or so for Q&A, questions, reflections, comments. Feel free to raise your hand. I can also just call out individuals. Carsten, did you want to say something?
No, I just turned my camera on, but
well,
I can mention it. Go ahead.
No, Carsten, you go. Sorry.
I would just say one thing is to go from one DAM platform to another. Another is to connect the MarTech stack and agree on ways to build content components so they are easy to share and scale up the content production. I think that's the really challenge in big organizations working with different systems.
That's great. Well, perhaps let me just ask a question. Do the people on this call here recognize those challenges I called out around growing volume of content, the speed at which the content needs to be built in order to be relevant and personalized in market, and then the variety of content as well. This growing volume of channels, different variants, derivatives, and sizes that are required to support the different ads via those different channels. Is that something that resonates with this group here? Are you seeing more pressure on your content operations functions?
Perhaps I can jump to one of the participants where we only have one with the same first name. I apologize, we had two Carstens, so that was a little bit confusing. But what do you say, Marcus? Is this a familiar challenge? Let's see if Marcus, yeah, there you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, familiar challenge. Yes, we are somehow working on something similar to be rolled out for us. So let's see what the challenges are. That's why I thought it might be interesting to listen today. But so far we are going to the challenges, but not yet there.
Very good. Anybody else wants to jump in here at the end with reflections or comments?
Yeah, damn it. I think Janice called this the content gap many years ago.
Yeah.
That's right, Bernd. Thank you. I think this is an area where we are not done yet. Perhaps we're halfway there, but we certainly have a journey ahead of us, all of us. Thank you, Warren, very much for finding the time to share with us.
Pleasure. Pleasure.
I really appreciate it. Like I said, I'll write up a blog post with the recording and your slides, your examples, the different stats from Aberdeen and the other struggles you mentioned along the way. And let's keep the conversation going.
Yeah, exciting time for content operations. Yeah, and I look forward to seeing content operations much more heavily involved in the top table in marketing and commerce as well. I think it's a really exciting time.
Thank you, Warren. Much appreciated.